When considering the greatest shows of all time, you're likely to hear 1994's sitcom Friends be brought up. You're much less likely to hear someone bring up Living Single, the first primetime drama to be developed by an African American woman. The show followed 6 friends navigating their careers in relationships in New York. Familiar concept, right? Which is why you might hear the show be referred to as the black version of Friends. Big quotes on that, because make no mistake, Living Single came first. As a matter of fact, Friends aired a whole season after Living Single. Despite this, the latter received more critical acclaim and studio resources, as well as the fact that many audiences to this day continue to grant it the credibility of originality. But why might this be? Well, there's no beating around the bush here, let's be honest. We all know the main difference. Living Single follows a black friend group while Friends follows a white one. Furthermore, Living Single spotlighted thriving black women in a time where representation of them was predominantly predicated on stereotypes, sorrow, and struggle. In many ways, the show's considerable success was frightening to network and studio execs, who proclaimed their support for progress so long as viewers remain passively attached to the television screen. As a matter of fact, I believe that because Living Single's imagery had the potential to decentralize white men in both television and professional culture, executives made a conscious effort to suppress its reach. Now, behind the scenes in the early 90s, the Fox network was looking for a new show to capture a young black audience. Seasoned writer Yvette Lee Bowser wanted to shift the means of production, noticing that the quote-unquote black shows were being produced by an all-white, all-male development room. At the same time, rapper Queen Latifah, comic Kim Coles, and actress Kim Fields were all coming to similar conclusions and wanted to create something by us, for us. Almost by fate, they were connected, and accompanied by actors Erica Alexander, T.C. Carson, and John Henton. They all teamed up to bring the sitcom My Girls to life. After production under Warner Brothers and a last-minute title change, the ensemble took the screen when Living Single aired in August 1993 on Fox Network. Throughout the history of cinema and television, the most neglected person has been the black woman. On an average day in the early 90s, a white man could turn on the screen and see himself conquering worlds, time, or other people. White women could see themselves as heroines or the emblem of womanhood. Black men could see themselves as leaders and doers, inching closer to the power held by white protagonists. And then we have black women. They could be fine shorties to be objectified. They could be stank-ass hoes to be lamented. Tired moms, most often single, or simply not present. Author and scholar Bell Hooks tracks these tropes back to the advent of cinema, reporting to experience fully the pleasure of that cinema. Black female moviegoers had to close down critique, analysis. They had to forget racism. To be a black female viewer meant to endure painful depictions or numb yourself to the pain by shutting off your brain. Some choice. Now, obviously, this isn't to say that black women had no positive on-screen icons. Take Cosby Show's Claire Huxtable, an extraordinary and elegant lawyer. Felicia Rashad filled every scene she was in with strength and intelligence. Still, as Yvette Lee Bowser put it, she was a mom. Living Single was a breath of fresh air in that it framed young black women with a lens of empowerment. Take Khadijah, editor and publisher of her own independent magazine, or Maxine, a fierce lawyer who always had a quick comeback. Each character came from a different walk of life, whether it was the projects or a small town in the Midwest. Bowser and company made sure not to depict the culture as a monolith, and when it came to men, they ensured that the girls bore the gaze, and not the other way around. Hook's black female spectator and her oppositional gaze were done justice, a win for black audiences but threatening for the white executives at the time. The idea that wealthy executives in the entertainment business would purposefully sabotage a show for being too progressive is outlandish. Downright insane, right? Well, as Richard Dyer suggested, race is not the only factor, but it is never not a factor. With that viewpoint in mind, let's break down the studio's handling of Living Single. The sitcom was produced under Warner Brothers, who seemed to have had low expectations from the beginning, giving them a budget of $1 million per episode for all 5 seasons of the show. Now, this was particularly odd because generally when a show is renewed for another season, it gets a substantial increase in funding. This was the case for another Warner production happening around the same time. As a matter of fact, that show grew to receive $10 million per episode by the time its final season came out. That show was called Friends. Actor T.C. Carson, who played core cast member Kyle Barker, recently revealed his firing from the show during later seasons because he acted as a spokesperson and alleged Warner's favoritism to their faces.
Friends worked on the big lot, so they got access to all the amenities that were on the big lot. At the end of it, they were making $100,000 an episode, or no, $1 million an episode, something like that. We didn't approach, at least I never approached any of those numbers. They had better services. They had better craft services. They had better trailers.
The face-off between the sitcoms was further exacerbated when Fox moved Living Single to the same time slot as Friends on Thursday nights, basically sealing the deal when it came to ratings. While there might not have been an overtly or even intentionally racist intent behind the treatment of Living Single, the consistency with which Warner, Fox, and NBC averted regularity suggests some ulterior motive. Dyer may lead us in the right direction, asserting that privilege and dominance are at stake in analyzing white racial imagery. I contend that the same is true when a piece of media analyzes the inverse, especially in an industry that positions white men and black women as the opposite of a spectrum that the entire entertainment apparatus hinges on. Living Single was too disruptive for the enterprise, making executives believe their will over audiences was at risk. So a show about successful black friends had to be replaced. It had to be normalized. That normalization took the form of deracing. A show about black friends was borrowed from and driven out by a show about friends. Not white friends, just friends. The distinction absolved the show from having to deal with race and lent the ensemble cast the freedom of being able to navigate an all-white Manhattan as they pleased. Viewers expecting a carryover of identity-inspired narratives from Living Single were disappointed. Author and media theorist Kristen Warner referred to the phenomenon as plastic soul, drawing influence from black musicians who were fed up with white musicians pulling from soul music. Statements from multiple Living Single cast members echo this frustration, especially considering the shift of ownership within audiences' eyes. When speaking on the black recasting of Friends featured in Jay-Z's Moonlight video, Warner notes that swapping in and out racial groups with little adjustment to the parts themselves retains the original work as the primary driver. The original work maintains its universality. But this type of classic representation doesn't quite apply to Friends and Living Single. Friends is universal work for everyone except Living Single fans because its characters and subject matter match what society has been conditioned to perceive as the defaults, aka white people. Because whiteness is a deraced condition of existence, Friends' harvest and reanimation of Living Single's heart into a plastic soul was accepted and celebrated by mainstream media. It is this celebration that's key to maintaining a predominantly white entertainment enterprise. Now, unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock and raise awareness about the network's shadiness in the 90s, but 32 years later, more people are giving Living Single its flowers. Furthermore, Reruns have allowed a new generation like myself to experience the magic. Friends is by all means a quality work in its own right, but to blindly champion it without acknowledging its predecessor repeats a cycle of plasticity that tracks back to rock, jazz, the blues. By preserving influential pieces of our culture and the context surrounding them, we can ensure that future generations of media makers forge an industry void of corporate malfeasance. In other words, we can make sure that the next living single doesn't fall prey to unchecked prestige.